Thanks so much for coming to our second grid meeting. We are super excited to see this community continue to grow. Today we have an awesome lineup of panelists who are joining us. My name is Veronica Figueroa, for those of you who don't know who I am, and many of you guys are my friends. But for the new faces, or anyone who is joining us online that has never met us, we are the chapter founders for the Orlando Grid, and we are excited to see this community continue to grow. Eric Perez, who's my partner and helps me run my real estate team, as well as many of our other businesses, is equally as excited, and we just love learning. Selfishly, we get to sit in the back and behind the scenes and learn from everybody and bring this community together. So this is Grid Orlando's second meetup, and we meet every second Wednesday of the month. So you can go ahead and put that in your calendar. I promise we'll get better at this. It's kicking off exactly at 6:30. So we want to make sure that we have enough time to get to our panelists. And today the topic is how to rehab for big profits. Really, really exciting topic for a lot of you who are aspiring, let's say, flippers, or want to rehab big projects, or want to, whatever, Airbnb, and even in the commercial space, right? These are things that you need to become familiar with. And we've got some pretty awesome panelists today that have experience in this field. They're known for good work, but also volume at scale. They're not just a onesie, twosie here and there, flipper or rehabber. They've done quite a number of projects, pretty big projects running at the same time. So I think that you're going to be able to get some great value from them. And then Eric, we've got some we've got some slides that obviously we could share for anybody who wants to take these with them, share with their buyers, their clients, or just, educate yourself, that we'll run through pretty quickly, right? Yeah. They're pretty basic, but I think the real meat and potatoes here today is the panelists, right? The people who are going to share their knowledge, their experience, maybe some challenges that they face. But yeah, we're really excited to be here. How many of you guys came to the first grid? All right, so we got some repeats. Who is here new for the first time? All right, well, welcome. We love seeing new faces. So this is great. I'll let kind of Eric go into the slides and kick off, and then we'll get into our panelists.
Hi guys, I'm Eric, and I'll be doing the slides with you guys. Thank you for coming once again. And the investor space and acquisition space came to me pretty organically, just because we were Zillow Offers broker partner. We bought so many houses and renovated and sold them for Zillow for 2 years. So I always wondered what would it take for us to do it on our own without Zillow. So that question sparked a landslide of events after the fact. And we do have an acquisition department now where we do acquire, wholesale, do things of that nature. So it's pretty awesome. And I think when we had the opportunity to grid, I was like, other people should know this. And a lot of us being realtors are so stuck on commission and sides of the transaction, right? And understand that like when that closes, it's over for us in a lot of ways, right? And that's not the whole story in real estate, right? That's the story that we were taught from day one as realtors. I'm not a realtor, but this is like, but that's the story, that's the narrative that we're taught as realtors, and there's so much more to that. So we're by no means any experts on this, but we're here to bring the collaboration in the community with obviously Veronica's influence. And the first lesson, because I am academic by all means, was on how to identify a motivated seller to give you the opportunity to do any sort of investments, whether it's long-term holding or wholesaling or things like that. Anybody who's willing to give up the property for you to make income off of. So we're going to talk about how to rehab the big problem. This is a very fundamental thing to do, or slides on how to do so. And it's just literally the basics. And that's important, right? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? When we talk about investments in real estate, it is a large, convoluted world, right? You'll start with simple hard money lending and sub 2 and seller finance and all these complicated ways to make it happen, which are really simple once you get to learn them. And it's so funny that you can go so deep in that world when we're just thinking about 30% of commission 95% of the time in our lives. So got some great people to follow, like the Herrera. So we're going to start. So we need to talk about what we do.
Oh, I already did that. Yes, I already did that. You guys, my name is Veronica Figueroa.
All right, cool. And then Veronica, Eric, we run the Figueroa team. Next. All right. Oh, important legal stuff. Have to do this.
We are not your tax advisor.
Do
We're
your own
accountants.
research.
Your accountant or your attorney, we are not giving you legal advice. We are not giving you
I'm
tax
not even a
strategies.
licensed realtor.
Okay, we are
You guys
not
listen to me, that's on
talking
you.
to you about
Alright.
good investments or bad investments. That is our disclaimer, okay?
I brought the wine and the cheese, and I'm gonna read these slides for you and go through it, okay? But
No, and one of the biggest things and one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in business is having a really great legal team, having a really great tax team, CPA team, and just like you're gonna hear from some experts, is having a really good reno team, trusted contractor, trusted roofers in the house. Don't take legal advice or tax advice without running it by your accountant. And you need a good CPA, accountant, tax attorneys, let us know. We have people we can recommend, but.
I don't know any, so I'll just tell you that. Oh, here, this is okay, this is my slide.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. The number one concept of this, especially if you're in some sort of high interest, hard money entry into a property, time is money. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So understanding what you're getting yourself into and be as prepared as possible. This will literally be the consistent theme throughout this entire presentation about preparation, understanding what you really have in front of you. So time is money, right? And once again, do your research. You are not renovating a property for your dream home. You're renovating a property to sell the damn thing, right? So do what it needs to do to get on the market, to make it pass inspections, the basics there, and get in, get out, rinse, repeat, keep
What did
doing
you
it.
tell me today? You were like, you don't get emotional with the project. You don't get emotional, even myself with my own personal property. I've owned about 14 properties in my life, or I've moved, different houses. I don't get emotionally attached. I should have one house right now I'm emotionally attached to. But
We're gonna sell it.
and we were talking about that today, and we're talking about the idea of getting emotional. And I think I was in a deal with him, with Israel and Maoline on one, and Israel was like, time is money, like the contract is this, and it's like you start realizing like it's a business, right? You don't get emotionally connected to it, and I think some of you guys probably will. Maybe in your first project or as you've been in project before, like you fall in love with it, you're like, oh, but I would like, again, emphasizing you detach the emotion from it and you realize this is a business transaction and you're not caught up in the whole like, oh my gosh,
Emotions don't go well.
Yeah,
Emotions don't go well.
he said that earlier today, which is pretty cool. And you just
anybody want to buy my car out there, you can have it. You can have it. I have a number for everything. But one of the important things when I was doing studying this is research your market on where your house is at. Things to sell and depending on different markets have different requirements of what you need, right? There's some locations where you can get away with a little bit messy of a house, right? Because that's the standard in that area. So do your research, know what's required, know what the standards are. There is no general perspective on that. You have to just like comps on a house, what's relative and around it. You need to compare that house to the ones around it or you won't sell it at the end of the day. Next. Oh, this is like a big one. Get your design and drafting help and plans and permits as soon as you can. Obviously before close, or you're going to extend close, or extend your closing date, and guess what happens? Time is money. That's the same narrative from day one or slide one. So when you do reach out, I mean, you're a fantastic interior designer, so Israel's lucky. But if you are in this, like I'm not a creative person at all, so I would lean on the women in my life.
And even then, I'm a woman and there's properties I bought. I think we had a deal with Drew and it was like, I never saw the property, never looked at the property, never visited the property. All I cared about was like, when we closing and how much money do we make? So it was just like, and what's, what the lipstick on it? Did we have to do too much rehab? Like Drew had already done all the homework, how much we needed to do. There's zero emotions connected, at least for me, because I was like, I love houses, I love to sell them, but at the end of the day, I don't even need to visit the property. If I have a good build team, I think eventually Israel and Maoline obviously would go out to pretty much every property you guys have, right? But at scale, like if I'm buying properties in a different state or I'm buying a property, I don't need to visit. I've got enough of a trusted crew out there but they need to have a plan in preparation.
We're gonna talk about that. So, but, you know, a lot of interior designers can do a lot of the plans and renderings for the typical rehab. It depends how, like, if there's any structural damage or if it goes deep into it, you will need experts in that area, individual contractors, structural engineers. But once again, do your research, know what you have in front of you and get to it, right? So always plan, and when you do need permits, like, please get them as soon as you identify it. Like, you need to just start that process immediately. This is obviously part of that too. Ensure permits, contractors, and dumpsters or utilities are ready for the day you close, not before. Now, this is also, you know, on the acquisition side too, when you're buying it. If you can prep any of this prior to that, that's important too. Sometimes it doesn't happen like that, but if you can do it, because once again, time is money. And also, you can get a home warranty when you sell the house. You can also transfer that warranty along with the house when, you know, the resale does happen. So that's always an option for you as well, especially if you are putting money into the house. You know, a warranty, they're not hyper expensive, but they're very worth it when it comes down to it. And it's also a little leverage when you're passing it along. So that's good. You want to say something? I know you want to say something.
I always want to say something.
I can feel it. Like,
I just want to brag about the other house that Drew and I did, that I never saw the house until 8 months later when I got it ready for Airbnb and I walked the property for the first time. I do not get emotional with the properties. I'm very proud of
3
it.
slides ago. Okay, we're gonna move on.
And then we started renovating and I did it all from a camera and I never visited the property.
And then she's like, how much can I get for it? Like, you don't even know where it's at. You have no idea which one of the street it's at. You have no idea. But anyway, renovate right is the next one. This is a big one. If you're gonna be bulldozing stuff, if you're gonna be running like you know, when everybody puts a pool in, you basically ruin your sod, ruin your lawn. Hey, before your neighbors reach out to the city because they think you're a psychopath because all the things that you're doing to that house, reach out to them, let them know who you are, what you're trying to do, so they call you and not the city first, because that's just going to cause a bigger issue, bigger problems. It could, you know, increase the time that it takes for you to actually make money in the process, and time is money. So always introduce yourself to your neighbors. Matter of fact, if you have general contractors or subcontractors you're using, maybe have them introduce themselves to the neighbor if they're going to be there for the next 2 weeks working on the project, right? So there's familiarity in that area.
I did go over to the little old lady next door because her property was overhanging onto my roof. And that was a property, I did go and visit it, but I never went inside of it. Let me correct myself. And I remember going to her and telling her who owned that property, and it was, she'd been renting there for a long time. She was like, you're not gonna buy this one, are you? I've been paying $875 for I don't know how many. I was like, oh, I want to buy that, and like I would raise the rent, but I didn't. But I did have to ask permission because if they didn't fix that, there was going to be obviously some you know, they were encroaching on my property and I had to let them know. So I actually got in touch with the owner and just said, look, you gotta have to fix this. And he was a slumberer, he didn't care. He was like, all right, you fix it and knock it down and you take the cost. So, you know, we agreed and at the end of the day, but you do have to communicate with them because there will be issues. Obviously, you don't wanna upset your
And that
neighbors.
goes into the research, like you could get that checked out even before you acquire the house if there is any encroachment on either side of it. But yeah, introduce yourself, be human. You know, we are emotionless in this investor world, but it doesn't hurt to say hello. Lock down your contractors for good scopes of work. Like I'm a big documentation guy, like in general. And when I have my team for whatever reason, and I'm writing a statement of work or scope of work, this is what will be done. And this is how we will get it done. And this is the timeline accordingly. You know, one of the things that this is all about research, right? Get super specific, like as detailed as you can, if you can, right? If you don't care, you just want X, Y, and Z fixed, however, okay. But having a good scope of work is gonna, you know, prepare you, you know, fair to prepare is preparing to fail, is gonna put you in a place where the agreement is there. What is it? Being clear is being kind or something. That transparency is key. So make sure that you and your contractors have exactly, you know, you're in the one track mind of what's gonna get done for their services and, you know, for your money at the end of the day. Consider a GC. Now typically this will raise the price of your renovations because you're not going direct to the subs, but it also raises the accountability on the general contractor and alleviates some of the pains that you would have to do it, especially for scale. If you have a single project, you can manage it, but the second you get to 3, 4, 5, and 6, if you don't have solid GCs that you can go to that have multiple subcontractors to it, you can have mistakes happen a lot because managing people is hard, especially those that are temporary, right?
And I think we have some GCs in the house. I know we have one, at least a roofer in the house. Any other GCs in the house? I think last time we had someone, well, today we have a
They
roofer.
didn't come back.
They didn't come back.
Yeah,
No, it's very busy.
probably busy working, yeah, but it's something to consider, right? But always it does matter on the margins, right? That's what we talked about in the first lesson, finding a motivated seller, trying to get it at the right price, don't overextend yourself where there's not much room for things like this, right? To protect yourself at the end of the day. So always consider a GC because they're gonna help you out at the end of the day. Do not get homeowner permits, right? The future liability will stay with you instead of the contractor that did the work, right? Pay whatever it costs to have contractors pull their own permits and handle all inspections. This is always about protecting yourself and what you're doing in the process, right? Drew, it's good to see you, bro. It's really nice to see you. I think 6:30 is when we talk about talking. Yeah, no, I'm joking. So do not get homeowner permits. Put that on those that are going to do the work for you. Just make sure you start the process earlier, like the previous slide said, and go accordingly because liability is also very important at the end of this because you know, we're in a sue happy country, so be careful with that. This is very good. Have a contingency budget. Shit goes wrong all the time, literally all the time. I think more wrong than right. And
You have to plan for obviously the things that you don't expect, right? If anybody who's a seasoned or experienced, or you've renovated anything, there are certain things you have to plan for that unexpected, you know, surprise. I didn't budget for this. You know, it's better to be prepared for the worst, right? And it's just, you know, then think that you're gonna go in with this very slim budget. You know, hey, I remember renovating one of my first projects and like not having enough money to, you know, like really spare, right? And every penny counted. But if you are going into these projects unprepared and you don't account for that, you know, failure or maybe that unexpected surprise, you are really setting yourself up for failure. You're gonna have to be calling to people like, I need some money.
well, I mean, it's the emotional aspect of it too. It's like me and Drew and Veronica say, we're gonna start this acquisition company. Okay, how many houses are gonna buy this month? We're like, that wasn't the right house for us. That wasn't the right deal for us. There's not enough room. And it's like, you want to say you do it just to say you do it at some aspect, but this is all about making money, right? So don't let the emotions like come to you and make sure that if it's tight, sometimes you might want to just let it go.
Yeah, I think that one of the best things that was, you know, that I heard was just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
And there are a lot of deals that come to us where it's just not the best deal for us. It might be a better deal for you, might be a better deal for you, right? Or for you, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. At least that's how we're a little bit more conservative. You know, we look for higher margins where other people will go with slimmer margins, but we just are thinking as well as those unexpected expenses that would come up, and we just know contractor demand too, like who's gonna do the work for us? You know, they're doing 4, 5, 10 different projects. So then we take into account also the fact that can they even service us as quick as we want them to service our property. So.
Yeah, and the next slide was going to like someone who's financially invested in the property should be going out there and checking on it, right? For quality assurance. I mean, at the end of the day, get your eyes on the work, you know, at least some part of that. I mean, Israel, how often do you go? Too much, yeah, too much. You gotta get a Tesla because it was getting crazy, you know, but it's, do that, do your own quality control. I mean, poor Drew, I send them all over Davenport and Poinciana too often, but at the end of the day, get out there, get into your properties and you know, inspect the work because you're not gonna have the same contractors on every job. The GC that you have is not gonna use the same subs for every job, you know, and sometimes they rush to just get their job done too and check that list like, oh, gotta do the drywall. Is it the best guy? No. Get in there early because once again, time is money and you don't extend it as far as you can.
Yeah, we've had to fire, you know, people who didn't, you know, either work at our speed or didn't deliver. And I had a project manager be the one who was like, look, I'm the one she hired to be the bad guy, you know, and I'm here to tell you, like, we're just not meeting our standards and we're moving on. We can finish this project and, you know, we're moving on to the next person because they didn't deliver within their timeline. So obviously there's a lot more details. You got contracts and stuff like that, but this person was just someone that wasn't meeting our standards and we're like, we've got to move on. They were just taking too long.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the process too, right? Because time is money, like that's at the beginning. And and the last part is, the last step is get the look, right? Renovate to the upper middle end of your target market based on comps, right? Make sure the renovations you're doing aren't just these little detailed, fancy high things are not going to raise the value of your house. Make sure when you're looking at comps, the house that you want to compare to is the house that you're renovating, like hypothetically, right? You want to be able to mirror that. You want to go as high as you can, but the upper middle end of the target. That's very, very, very important.
Or just call Kelly and Abyss or Maoline for decorating and how to get it to look amazing, right? They're really good at that.
I would pick the cheapest shit for everything, so, I was like, no, sometimes we're gonna spend it. I mean, I think when Drew was like, no, we gotta do this kitchen right. I was like, just, they're gonna use cabinets anywhere, but,
We don't let Eric in that department.
yeah, we're gonna do that. And also keep it neutral, right? Like, I'm a big contemporary guy. I would like everything, all the furniture to be painful to sit in because I like the way that it looks, but at the end of the day, keep it neutral and keep it generally on trend. At the end of the day, I mean, obviously there's tons of places you can go to find this out. There's tons of resources. There's room if you need to find out what that looks like, but keep it neutral and fair for everybody, that you'd have a good attraction to this house. Don't design it like I like it because it's just people like me that would like it.
Okay, guys, is this the weirdest thing ever? Like, he's got this up, he's got the websites up, and now House just popped up on my phone with a notification. Like, Big Brother's watching at all times. And this is
damn how I told you about this.
It's everything, right? Like, I'm like,
Bezos.
and I just turned off all notifications on my phone, and why is House now popping up on my thing, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But it is one of my favorite apps when it comes to design. Ladies, I mean, I'm sure everyone in here has House downloaded. If you don't, like, you should. It is so amazing, and it's great for, obviously, designer tips, trends, and obviously for rehabs. Of course, it's a great place to look, but even for your own homes.
Yeah, the last is like features and finishes worth considering. This is like so out of my realm, so I'm just gonna read this slide.
So do you want me to talk about
Yeah,
that?
can you talk about that?
In other words, listen, ladies, just do what I just told you to do. Let's make it, it'll look really nice. And guys, too, what I think was one of my favorite things that I used to see back in the boom, before the market crash, when Invitation Homes was buying all the properties and some of these other big, I would say, rehabbers, they bought everything pretty much in bulk and all their homes look the same. But just try to have obviously tasteful finishes. But I would walk into certain properties and I knew who the rehab was, who the rehabber was, and whose house that was, because they were buying everything at scale, which you could do as well, which obviously you could do. But if you want that signature look and you have the time to make each home look different, like some of my friends in here who do a really good job. But again, your finishing touches worth considering, railings, obviously.
Well, additional lighting, whether it's natural or artificial, is always really important. It makes your room look different. That's all I know, so that's all I'm gonna say.
Also, to get you stuff on Amazon instead of like Home Depot.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have rehabbed my house in Puerto Rico and some of my other properties. Like, literally our Amazon bill is just like ridiculous. Maribel goes, who's my designer. She's like, I have boxes coming in, and I'm like, next thing you know, we had 200 boxes in our Puerto Rico house when we were redesigning one of the properties, and it was Amazon.
Amazon doesn't tell you what you buy just on the credit card statement. It's like $2,000 at Amazon. What is that? You know what I mean? That's always my question. Can I please, like, what is that?
Get it itemized.
And then there's just shit coming to the door every day, just random things. And the last part, sorry I'm going through so quick because we started late, so I want to respect everybody's time, but stage it, right? Lug that furniture in, lug that furniture out. It does make it worth it. It does get more attraction to your property. It will help you sell it quicker. The psychology of it is very important, and I think that time is money. So we're not sitting here. We don't have high equity in the house. We don't, not the homeowners. We don't have time to do that. We want to sell it and move on. So if we have to lug some furniture in there, absolutely do so. No, nothing to say? What is happening? Step 4, get that sold, get it sold. And as we all know, if you're doing your research and your pre-marketing, things like that, there is like, what's that company used to use, Box Brownie?
So we used to use Box Brownie to edit
Stage,
photos and
virtual
stage.
staging and rendering, there's probably another one that you can use, but that's very, if you don't have all the, if you can't have every room staged, you know, it's a good idea to do that as well when you're listing things in the MLS, but it's absolutely important to do that and understanding how you're gonna market the house even prior to it being done renovated. Like having those plans in place is very important.
I want to talk about getting it sold because most of you guys obviously are real estate. The majority of the room in here are real estate agents, right? A majority of you guys are either some experiences or some getting into this or want to partner with some people. Obviously, we're in a kind of shifting market, right? It's not a crash, but I think it's just a reset, a reshuffling of where the urgency is. It's a correction. One of the tools that we're actually excited to be rolling out is an auction style, bidding system, which I think would be cool for anybody who is wanting to promote their properties. And you can literally create this live auction system of the properties. Two things, because you are real estate agents, there's transparency, and you can make it an auction party for the property. And I think this would be great for one of your own rehabs. The company that you could use that's only $99 for unlimited properties, it's Market View. Market View. It's a great tool. We won't be using them because we'll be using a different one exclusively, but as it rolls out, and we're testing Dorsey in Orlando. But what's really cool is because you're real estate agents, for those of you who are real estate agents, you could use that as showing the real live auction, what buyers are willing to pay, and then once you get it sold, if you are an agent that still is in the business of selling houses, you could use that information to go to prospective sellers in the market and show them the amount of buyers that you had that have interest in that property. And the buyers are actually driving up the sales price because they get to see who they're beating. So there's actually transparency to it. So that may be something you not only want to use with your real estate flips, but also you could use that in your traditional real estate business. If you want more information on Market View, I'd be happy to connect you with the company and get you a demo.
Use an agent at the Figueroa team. If you want to sell a house.
If you're not one, right?
If you're not one. So yeah, use an agent. Obviously, a lot of us are real estate agents, we know our value, so it's worth it at the end of the day. And price to sell, right? Always price to sell. I think Rob told me that he was like $4.99 is going to sell faster than $5.15. Literally, what it says on the slide. Just for whatever reason, that it's going to happen like that. And a multiple offer situation usually beats the current asking price. So price it to where you're going to get those offers in, and obviously having backups because the whole concept is to get it sold, to get your money out and get to the next project. And you have to cut, this is weird, but if you have to cut the price, go to the next band, right? So $5.99 to $5.47 is 1,000 price cuts do nothing to bring in new buyers or encourage new multiple offers. If you're sitting here, you're gonna reduce it $1,000, you're not serious about trying to get that sold, right? You're still having that mentality that you're trying to get the most for. And this is why doing your research at the beginning is make it comparable, make it to where people want to actively go into your property. You might get $595 if you list at $574 in this market. So this $1,000 price cut bands they're just a waste of your time, and it makes you look soft in the market if you ask me personally.
Right. So you guys, we will share these slides with you. Like if you want to use these as educational pieces for your clients and people that you want to educate, that's not a problem. You'll get the recording too. We'll break into our panelists in a second. I just want to talk a little bit about, before we bring the panelists up, is what you said on that last pricing strategy. We're all pretty experienced here, but how many of you guys have been in the business 5 years or less? Show of hands. Okay. 5 years or less. 10 years or less? Okay, 15 years? All right. So obviously, if some of you guys have been in the bubble, I mean in the crash that we were in 2008, 9, I was in that market. Listen, everything in sales in any market.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this whole thing of interest rates and with inflation, I kind of want to give everybody a little tip as well. When you leave here and you're, whether you research Keeping Current Matters, all of you guys have a membership with Keeping Current Matters, right? Yes? Okay, good. Because if you don't, you should go get one right now. Okay, make sure you have that. Know your data, huh? Know the industry, know the interest rates, know what's really happening, so you can be the the expert in your market. Don't deliver noise, be the resource to the people that you obviously are, influencing. But most importantly, what he just said, like when you're doing price drops, like I remember being, in the market where we did have to do price drops, we would get strategic price drops and then get the house sold where we wanted it anyways. And that's why I was saying, if you use things like a market view or Doorsy or those tools that will stimulate the buyers to get excited, don't get the price up where you want it if you do it the right way and you market it the right way. So I just want to, because we have a room full of realtors as well, and probably we have a lot of realtors on the chat. Everything can sell at the right price. And I don't want you guys going out there and putting the news out there that the market is crashing. I see some of y'all putting out those posts on social media. Oh my God, interest rates are at 5.5. But I sold houses at 9.7. All right, people still need a place to live. Don't scare the public. Some of you are looking at me like you know who I'm talking about. Do not scare the public. You are the experts to let them know that real estate is still in any market. It is still what builds wealth. It is still a very big part of our economics. So please do not be that person out there to instill fear in the market. Just be the expert that delivers the facts. And there is a way to buy real estate in any market.
And I think part of it is like ignorance is fear, right? It's because you guys are facing something that you haven't seen before a lot of times as realtors, but houses will always be selling at some aspect. So instead of being scared, educate yourself, learn, read, right? Do the things, ask the people who live there before you.
Yeah, there's portfolio lending, there's debt service lending, there's so many different ways for people to still buy property. Promise me today, you will not leave here being that person that instills fear in what's happening. You have to instill confidence when you leave here today to the people who trust you as the expert advisor. That's my realtor disclaimer thing. Before we bring up our panelists, any questions? Any questions for Eric and I? Good.
No, I have so I don't know if everyone here knows this, but if you're gonna flip a house, the price at Lowe's isn't necessarily the price. If you're gonna flip a house, go to the front of the store, go to the pro desk, get yourself a relationship with a pro, and they submit your big orders to the bid room.
Can you say that on the mic so that the people on the
I love this guy. He was saving my ass.
Yeah, so the price at Lowe's or Home Depot isn't necessarily the price because you have to go to the front of the store, meet with a pro, go to the bid room. And when they submit it to the bid room, it's a significant difference. I mean, I'm talking like 35% off sometimes, 40% off. Sometimes they have refrigerators that are sitting in the back that you didn't even know they had, that they're like, hey, we've been trying to get rid of this. It was a return, special order, it's counter depth, nobody wants it. And it's a really nice refrigerator. You can buy a $3,000 refrigerator for $700. So
what is the qualification for them to consider you a pro? Like we're pro at Home Depot, right? So what would the person who's going to go for the first time to the bid counter, what would they?
So my pro asked that before we submit anything, have a $1,500 threshold. Okay. So that's what she says. Yeah, more than $1,500, it goes to the bid and they'll knock it down. Otherwise, even if it's not $1,500, there's another way. You can get a Lowe's for Pros account, which is an online, and automatically when you put your items in, it's gonna knock at least a portion off. So it's totally worth it, and it's worth checking into because we redone houses for what should have been, I don't know, $20,000, and our material costs were $13,000 instead. So I mean, it's significant savings.
This is one other thing to keep in mind, but along with that account, you can also, if they give you a quote and say we buy the prices, I can make several purchases of that same package with that same discount.
Yes.
So if something's on sale now, but my house won't be ready for 30 days, 60 days, I can buy them now.
Yeah.
So you still get a discount. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And they usually waive delivery fees too, if you ask them to. So you'll get all the stuff delivered to the house. You don't have to figure out how to do it. They'll waive the delivery fee.
And another thing is they can hold it in the store.
Yes.
Another good thing is that they can hold it in the store for you. So let's say you have the rehab, you don't have to pay the storage for that extra thing. And it is a significant amount as well if you have to pay for the storage from. Instead, if you have, let's say, 2,000 square feet worth of tile, you know where to hold that. Lowe's or Home Depot can just have it in the store, you just pay for it and then pick it up later, or delivery.
Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce my panelists, Kelly and Andres, come on up. We're gonna have you guys come on up. Yes. And we have Maoline Herrera, come on up. We're already shining our light. All right. I'm gonna switch this up. I'm gonna have Michael jump on here as well. Michael, you're gonna be one of my panelists. We're gonna be improv too, and then Valeria, you're gonna be my special guest. Afterwards, after the rehab, we're gonna talk a little bit about what you do and who to target. So since you guys broke into rehab, we're gonna talk about that right now. Because that's obviously what they're here for, and you guys grab the mic. So let's put you up on here and talk a little bit about what you do. So Michael's a roofer, obviously, actually general contractor, as well as an experienced agent, successful real estate team leader, and has tons of experience. How many homes have you guys flipped this year, or plan on flipping this year, Maoline?
Flip? No.
No, come on. Now I'm moving over to Maoline. Yes, and then I'm gonna give him a mic too.
Hello, can you hear me? Is it on? I don't think it's on.
So you guys are on track. So Michael, roofing, big specialty for you. You guys service Central Florida all the way to the coast.
Go anywhere in the state.
They'll go anywhere. Talking to the mic because we got people there. And then, Maoline, you guys are how many homes this year so far?
So far, we're at 14. We're purchasing 7 this month. So that's what, 19 or so.
And you guys are on track. I think 60 is
60
the
is the
goal.
goal. Last year we did 26, 60 is the goal.
One-
So 15 a quarter is how we broke it down. And so far, I mean, we're doing amazing. We've had to slow down a little because we have so many properties that we're rehabbing. And as we mentioned, a lot of having the right contractor team in your team is very important for our success. So
Awesome. And then Kelly and Andres, many of you guys know them. They probably need no introduction. Mr. Airbnb and Mr. Airbnb King and Queen. And they do beautiful rehabs as well. How many properties do you guys own? Because you guys do a lot of holds, but you do also some flips as well, right?
Yeah, we currently own 25 single-family homes. This year we bought 5 houses and we flipped 4 so far.
Wonderful. Give them a round of applause. It's pretty awesome. Okay, good people. And I guess the biggest thing is, we've talked last time about how to find deals, right? There's obviously wholesalers, you guys have clients, you can search the MLS, Israel, gave some of the tips, and Drew and Romel, lots of different things. But so you have them, and I guess the question is it seems like you guys spend a lot of time on your properties, right? In the world of social media, right? But you got it down to a science, right? While you're still building your real estate business for those of, who are aspiring to be a little bit like you guys. But where do you, who plans the designs? What do you do to make this a profitable, project while you're doing beautiful work? But the biggest thing here is profits, right? Kelly, Andres, kind of give us a little bit about what you guys do and who's in your arsenal. And if anybody wanted to get started or is maybe needing some inspiration, what would you say to them?
Sure. So yeah, we definitely have a property management team that takes care of all the houses that we have, because we have 25 single-family homes, but we have about 34. We've split the single-family homes into 34 Airbnb rental units, which is a lot of work. So we have 2 full-time property managers that take care of that, so we can focus on acquisitions. And I'm basically the one that looks for the deals. That's basically my niche. That's what I love to do: finding the deals, negotiating with the seller or negotiating with the wholesaler. And then Kelly, my wife, is the one that makes it beautiful, essentially. So we've divided and conquered in that sense. We project manage to a certain extent, and then we've also hired people who help us project manage. And we try to keep it to at least 4 to 5 flips at the same time, because anything more than that, at least for me, was a little bit too much. So yeah, hiring the right property manager for me was probably key. And finding out what I really love to do, which was finding the deals. And that's pretty much what I do 90% of the time. And then obviously budgeting and saving money is it's another good thing that we do and love. And from the rental income that we generate, we try to keep as much as possible, so we can reinvest and keep buying more properties. Living below our means is one of the biggest things that we like to do. And yeah, not overspending on expensive luxurious things.
So do you use the same contractors for every project? Are they pretty much they're like working exclusively for you, or you have it when you find these, they'll be like, oh, they're caught up with Bob's project, so they can't work my project. So how many contractors or crews are you working with to help you make sure that your project's still moving, you can make a profit, you can still get the quality of work that you look for?
So we do have some people that are part of our team, let's say an electrician, an architect, a painter, a plumber. We do have the key people that are usually with us for the majority of the projects, but not at all times it's going to be the same people, because that will constantly change in the quality of job that they do, and also the amount of houses. We can't have the same crew running all projects at a time. We've had that at the beginning, and we found out that was a big mistake. Why? Because the people are going to take advantage of knowing that they have all this work with you, that they're going to become lazy. So I actually suggest it's better to keep different crews. And if you do have to move on and change them from house to house, at the end of the day, you're going to be learning through the process, and you're going to be finding new relationships and new people that are going to be helping you through the area. Some GC or some contractors in general may get also, whenever you start giving them too much work, can get to their head, and then they start going crazy with the prices. They don't understand that most of the overhead is on us. Yes, it can be good money, but it's also a higher risk, and the more houses you have, the more you have to spend. So they don't really understand that. So we do have to change constantly, but you should have your go-to people for specific things that you trust. That's also going to help you a lot in cases that, let's say, if you're not here, you're not going to be able to go to that house. Trusting your team is extremely important. Having that relationship that you can let them go to Lowe's and Home Depot and having them purchase the material, having them maybe paying for it, instead of you having to go there all the step of the process. I know that social media also shows that you do spend a lot of time on the properties, but that's majorly at the initiation of the process. Most of the houses we do keep instead of selling, depending on the occasion. But at the end of the day, you don't want to spend way too much time in that property. If you want to go there every day, it's not going to make sense at the end of the day. Time is money, and you don't want to spend all that time there.
Give it up. All right.
Airbnb king and queen. When is it that, because they're like my little Airbnb, my flipping queen, right? I like to call them that. And then you guys, the Airbnb, and I love Airbnbs too, right? So when do you decide that it's a better flip for you, or you're saying, do you ever argue about like, we should keep this one as an Airbnb, or no, we should flip it? And then who normally wins, and why do you decide that?
I want to keep them all. I want to keep them all because at the end of the day, it's I just see this as just a buy and hold game. I think a PER, which is the buy, rehab, refi, repeat. I think that right there is a much better strategy than flipping, right? Because it's long-term wealth, right? You know, us holding the 25 properties that we own since COVID, the properties have appreciated almost $1 million. That right there is where the true value of holding real estate is. That was $1 million that we didn't have to work for. The real estate market just went up. That was really what I see in true value. Flipping obviously is good, quick cash. But if it was for me, I would flip them all. Or I would keep them all. I would keep them all for sure. But I don't always win.
Do you ever did she say, no, we're selling this one?
Oh no, for sure. She wants to sell them. If it was for her, she would sell them all right now. She would. She wants to cash out. But at least as long as it nets us $1,000 a month after paying mortgage, taxes, insurance, property management, everything, I would want to keep it. And most of with our strategy with Airbnb, usually nothing less than $1,000 a month net. So that to me is pretty valuable.
Okay, so I get the game of keeping it versus selling it, but all right, how do you budget for it? For those projects that you're going to, whether you keep or rehab, like how do you establish the budget so that they get budget for these rehabs to make sure you're not overspending, or do you have a formula that you like to use, or is it just ad hoc?
I think it's case by case.
Yeah, just case by case. Honestly, we eyeball it. You know, when we buy the property, we usually try to be as specific as possible. We do the 10% in case that there's anything that's wrong with the property. We usually spend 10-15% more usually, because that's just what happens, especially with the material costs right now. But the deal is buying properly, and we usually buy, you know, at 60-65% of what the actual value is. So it does give us a lot of space for mistakes. And usually, if we are keeping them for a little bit longer, or if our rehab takes 3 months or 6 months, the market has been in our favor. And, you know, the comp that we had when we purchased it, you know, when we're ready to list, usually there's a comp that's much higher than original. So it usually always works out. And we don't have like a specific formula for budgeting on that. We just have good contractors, and I try to negotiate with our contractors as best as possible. And we keep them very occupied. So they usually give us really good pricing.
And also another thing is that in case of thinking which one we should sell, which one we should keep, it also depends how, as far as the management. So the ones that are closer, let's say, to the area that we live, it will be easier for us to manage them, so we keep them like that. But most importantly, is not being emotional about it, just like you guys were talking about it. Even though we don't want to sell them all, or he wants to keep them all, if somebody comes with the right price, it can always be sold. So the main thing is not getting emotional attached for it, because some people, mainly if there's another investor that wants to get in business, they would rather sometimes buy something that's already been fixed up, that's already been furnished, that's already have some bookings for to cover their expenses, instead of doing it all from zero. So I think there's going to be also a market for everybody. There's going to be a buyer for everything. And even though sometimes the houses are not even up to the market, people are willing to pay a lot more if the Airbnb is already up and running and already fixed up.
Love that. All right, so Maoline, obviously you're running a lot of projects at the same time. How do you keep it budget conscious, still looking like the way you want it to look, HGTV style, with that flipping show you guys have got brewing on, and still make the profit.
This is how we flip.
This is how we flip, and while still making the big profits, right? The big P, which at the end of the day, all this could look sexy, but it's gotta be profitable. And I'd love to hear a little bit from you before we go on to our next speaker.
So
Israel's here to learn. He's taking notes.
I'm taking notes. So, you know, in our case, we have our own in-house contractors. So I keep the same crew. They go to different properties. I know their set of skills. They know what I like. If something gets delivered, like sometimes one time we got a door that was delivered. He called me right away. I was like, there's no way you ordered this door. And he knew, it's like, these tiles, these are wrong. So we keep the same contractors. We're adding new ones, a GC, because Israel has been working as our GC. He's going everywhere, visiting all the properties. And, you know, we have to stay, in order for us to finish our project as quickly as we do, we have to stay on top of that, on top of them.
Are your GCs working for other people's projects as well, or do you have them on salary?
No, he's the one GC that we have. He does work with the other projects, but he manages the different projects that we're working. Now, our contractors that do the work, they are in-house with us. So we pay them. So they're solely working for us because we give them volume, right? There's no need for them to go anywhere else. They're getting volume here. So that makes it easy for us. We don't have to wait for you to finish a project with Bob or whoever, because you know, hey, we're closing on this house. We have 2 closings this week. So we've already talked about what the plan is on those properties, right? And who's gonna do what. And so, you know, they're finishing up other projects that should go on the market next week, and then they move on to the next one, so on and so forth. So we get on a schedule. It's very important. The scope of work is very important. We keep them honest. They know what we expect. There are certain materials that I order, Amazon, like Drew said. You should, like Mother's Day, we had people in my house, there was boxes all over the front door. They were like, Amazon, what is this? I'm like, these are my supplies. But, you know, set up pro accounts with different vendors that you use on a consistent basis. You know, I like floor and decor because each home, I like to give it a special touch. We want to stay on budget, yes, but I want to be different than everyone else that's flipping a house in Orlando. So when you walk into this home, you'll probably say, well, the Herreras probably did this one. you know, because every home I want to give you a special touch. Yes, Israel tries to reel me in and keep me on budget. He's becoming a believer now because
I don't know, his face shows different.
he's becoming a believer. I'm like, you know, I see things, I have a way of visualizing it. And it may look, if I just show you the tile, you may say, I don't know these colors. But once you see the finished product, it's like, okay, that was a good choice. And a lot of times buyers love it. So they're willing to pay extra. You wouldn't believe how much people are willing to pay for things that they can just do themselves. And it costs them $200-300. But they're just, to them, it's just so daunting. So when it's done, they'll pay you whatever you're asking for, you know? So we stay on budget because we try to stay on track with everything. We have a plan at the beginning. I know when the properties are closing, we walk the properties. Israel, you know, does a great job with the acquisition side. He's a great negotiator, as you guys, the people who know him know. He's a great negotiator, and that's where you start. You start at that price. If you purchase a property at the right number, I mean, everything else after that is a win, you know, so.
I want to ask that one curveball question. What is a win for you? What is a win and what is an L? Like, oh, we made less than, and
you know, sometimes we have to check ourselves because lately we've been like, you know, we're making huge profits. And there's been a couple where we're like, oh, we only made 40. And it's like, okay, but that's a great payday. I mean, think about it. We're closing, you know, 4 properties this month alone, you know, and then we have 6 under contract next month. So if you think about it, if I'm closing, even if I'm only doing 40 per property, that's 4.
Yeah.
You know, that I'm doing this in a month alone. So we have to check ourselves sometimes because it's like, oh, we only made this. And I'm like, yeah, but we made like 100 and something of the other one, you know? So it's, but to me.
Let's edit that for the IRS.
I know, don't put that.
I didn't hit live on Facebook today. You
Don't put it out there, don't put it out there.
This
I
is
had
a
a lot of
sitcom.
expenses, I had a lot of expenses. So, but to me is seeing is at the closing table. When I see the buyer, you know, a lot of time I interact with the realtor throughout the process and I see, they tell me the story, this is a single mom that's buying a home for her and her son. You know, those things like that make me emotional. So those are the wins for me.
I love that. I love that. All right, so you get the more contractor-based questions. You already helped them with the pro. How many projects can you guys legit, like when you're working with someone and you're working with maybe at Rehab or like they are, like how many projects could a healthy, in your experience, a healthy relationship to where it doesn't become bottleneck, or what would they need to know to keep a contractor honest, since you're one, and where you would say, here are some red flags, or any of them building new relationships with the contractor, whether it be a roofer, GC, because I know they have their experience, but obviously you guys work with many others. What would you say, tips, recommendations for them who are going to be taking on some projects?
Yeah, so I think that varies for the person, but I think that she said it right. I don't know that I would hire any GC to do every single project with their subs, their everything, every single time. I think the important part is the GC. See, I personally can't even, as a GC, can't pull an electrical permit. Like I can't, I need a licensed electrician to do that. Even if I am licensed electrician, they want to see some separation. So what I recommend every single person that's going to get serious about flipping is get your trades lined up, people that you trust, that you know, and then approach a GC and ask them, basically you're renting the license, they're responsible. But at the end of the day, everything is going to have to pass inspection, and the GC should be aware, but the GC should really be able to work with you on a permit to help you get the entire project done. But they don't have a GC just manage every project that you do, because exactly what they said will happen. As if you just keep them, they're going to say, okay, well, I know what you made on that last one, and I know what you made on this one, and I know what you made on that one, and I know what you're trying to do to me. You're trying to make me work for less, and so they're just going to keep running up their prices. So honestly, I personally, and have done this myself, I have tradesmen that are lined up all the time in different industries. I have a flooring guy, an electrical guy, a plumbing guy, you know, and then we can pull the project permit, and then they can either handle it, but you know, there's a difference. So a lot of people think that a GC is the same thing as a construction manager. It's not. So the general contractor will just give you the ability to do it. And most general contractors have hired a construction manager as well. Like I have a construction manager that runs all around to all of our jobs to make sure that everybody has all the materials they need, to make sure they're tying off properly if they're supposed to make sure that OSHA stuff is being followed, because you don't want to get dinged. But at the end of the day, I personally like the idea because honestly, GCs right now, like we're eating well because we have so much to do. And so to get one in the flipping industry where you can run the right margins, I feel like that's difficult, honestly. So I think that you manage your trades, you work it out with a GC, or they get a small fee to pull the stuff, and then make sure that they're confident in the way that you manage your projects so that they don't get hurt.
Helpful, valuable. You paying them post-closing or prior to closing? Your relationships?
Well, we do a percentage at the beginning, the middle, and at the end.
Three
Yeah.
draws.
You guys?
Yeah.
3 draws, post-closing, beginning?
Yeah, we usually do 25. Well, it depends with the people, but usually it's either, 25, 25, 25, 25.
Okay.
Basically is what works, yeah. And sometimes like in one of our projects, we actually are doing per diem. So we set a date and expected like, hey, we're supposed to finish by May 15th. And if you haven't completed by May 15th, that there's going to be basically a per diem. If I'm paying interest on this, then in a way you should as well. So we've started to use that on one of our projects, and it has helped
Accelerate the project?
definitely 100%.
What do you charge for that per diem?
It's basically just 50% of my hard money cost. Basically, I told them, hey, this is how much I'm paying for, an interest, taxes, insurance. Cut that in half. You're paying that per diem.
Love that.
That was another thing I was going to recommend if you're going to get serious about house flipping and you want to do it, put incentives into the project where if somebody finishes a little bit early, they get a few bucks. And it doesn't have to be a lot in order to incentivize them. It can be $200. Hey, if you finish this week, I tell you what, you gave me a quote for $1,800 to lay this tile. You finish this week, I'll give you $2,000. Because what happens is in the end, it's going to cost you a lot more on that interest bearing than that person ever does. But one thing I usually do, like you said, I will charge like my guys, if they don't finish, I'm charging against that by that date, because I'm going to charge them. I'm going to start charging them. Whereas they can make $200, I'm going to charge them $100 a day for every day that they're not done for what is done. And I have that in contract.
You look like you just had an aha moment.
Aha moment. I mean, my guys, for the most part, we stay on track. Just things that come up that's out of their control as well. Sometimes where we see the delay, sometimes delay.
So I'm talking strictly labor.
But it's just them.
Strictly labor. I'm not talking about I'm talking about the things that they're in control of. If you can't get your materials on site, you can't ding them for that, and that is something else we have written in our contracts. But
Value? Yeah. All right, cool. All right. So I have another guest I want to bring up, but we're going to put a plot twist on this, right? This is someone who specializes in the commercial phase of, projects and representing clients, and has a pretty extensive background in the commercial investment space and representing clients. And I'm assuming there's every once in a while little rehab projects there, managing projects. So Valerie, when we met, I was like, oh my God, you need to come to Grid. I love what you've done. Tell everyone a little bit about your background and how your business model maybe differs a little from the residential world, but also doesn't, and how lucrative it can be in the commercial space of rehabs and flipping and portfolios.
Okay, so a little bit about myself. I come from the investment world. So I have 2 bachelors in finance and economics. And as soon as I graduated with my economics degree, I went into Wall Street in New York City. So I worked in Wall Street for a while for AXA Equitable. I was a hedging risk manager there. And then I moved back to Florida because I got burnt out pretty quickly in Wall Street and moved back and was a financial advisor here for Wells Fargo. Before my husband convinced me to get my license in real estate, I was always very adamant. I was like, no, we don't even need a degree to be a realtor. And I went through all of this years of school. And so I was very adamant. And then in 2015, I decided to get my license because we did our first investment in 2013. And then I kind of pretty quickly figured out that we could make more money in real estate and investing in real estate than I was making being a financial advisor. So in 2015, I got my license and, we started investing in real estate. And in 2018, I started working with the public. From 2015 to 2018, I pretty much just had my license for ourselves, all of our investments. We have done it all. We've done wholesaling, we've done flipping, we have rentals, we own, real estate. And then since always been in that world of investments, I do deal with a little bit of a different clientele than most. 90% of my clients are investors, right? The ones that I have that are first-time home buyers and stuff like that, like the normal, are referrals from those investors, right? So obviously I take care of them and I do, but 90% of my business are investors. And I do all of it for those investors, including commercial. So yes, I have big investors that only want to do commercial. So like right now, I'm, working on a deal for a 7-Eleven. So it is, I deal with a lot of that. The world of commercial, it's a different world. I mean, I've done every investment opportunity you can think of. Again, we've done wholesaling, flipping, rentals, Airbnb. I've done it all in the residential world. The commercial is a different world. Again, the commission is also higher and it's negotiable. I don't know if you guys knew that. So then whenever, you guys are trying to, now fight this, I want to list it, but then you give me a 4%. And now I've seen some listings at like 1% or something like that in the MLS. In commercial, it works a little different. And I say it's a different world because in the commercial real estate, there's two things that you really, really need is a good attorney. Like you need a good attorney, period. Like the documents that you have to, evaluate and the rent rolls and all of these things that you have to kind of, evaluate they're huge, right? Like if one, let's say for example, if I was doing an evaluation for a shopping plaza in Yongbyon last month, there's a rent roll, right? Like they tell you, okay, we have 10 tenants in that plaza. And then we have to evaluate every single tenant, right? Because you're buying the whole plaza. You're not buying one space, you're buying the entire plaza, correct? So you have to evaluate every single, contract, every single tenant. So then at that point, you need that good attorney that can tell you, hey, listen, this contract that the other people, the sellers wrote is not written properly, or you could be in trouble if you buy because of this or anything like that. So it's a different world. Because also you really have to be a numbers person. You have to really know how to financially evaluate these deals, because it's not like doing an ROI, like return on your investment and doing like, it's at a different level. So as long as you have like a good, attorney on your side, you have a good, accountant that could look at all of those rent rolls and say, hey, listen, they've been filing their stuff correctly. But yeah, I just do it a little different because my clientele is a little.
When you're working with commercial in your obviously portfolio management and you're supporting these people that trust you, a lot of them also are not even local, right? You also manage the rehab projects as well, and or the GC work for the commercial projects. So any tips? And also, like I always say, this is a platform where deals can happen. So if you run across a commercial deal opportunity, the goal here is if you don't have someone that has the expertise that Valerie has, why not call Valerie and you guys maybe partner on a deal or bring those opportunities. Same thing if you're not familiar with how to rehab your first project, you have very seasoned people here that you can bring them an opportunity to either partner or mentor or work together. And there's plenty of opportunities. So in the commercial world as well, and obviously you being so savvy in the financial sector, give them a little glimpse as to what happens also if you have to take on this, you have this commercial opportunity and now you have to manage the project to get it to where it needs to be at, what that world looks like.
Well, I want to say that project management is project management. It really doesn't really, in that sense, it's the same, right? Like in that sense, it's the same. I do, like I have clients that buy properties with me who have never seen them and will never see them. And actually some of them have bought them, rent them and sold them and everything, and they never got to see them. Like they never come here, like they live overseas in other countries and they never even get to see the properties. The rehabbing, I think it's rehabbing. It's
Do
very
you pick
similar.
the contractors for them, or they trust you with everything?
Yes, I do. So I don't, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I don't do any of it. My husband does all of that.
Come
So,
on to the
yeah.
panel.
So yes, I mean, I admire this woman for dealing with those contractors. I am gonna tell you that is one thing that, like most married couple, like each to each their own, like every single one of you have your own, qualities. Mine is not dealing with the contractors. Like my husband is the one that puts them in place and tells them what to do and how to do it and everything. Cause I kind of go there and I tell them, and I'm very knowledgeable, obviously, like I've been doing this forever. So I tell them, this is not gonna pass inspections, and they're like, okay. I go there 2 days after, nothing gets done. My husband goes there and in 2 hours it's done. So I'm like, I'm not gonna waste my time. So at some point I kind of just decided to stay out of it, but the renovation for commercial is the same. So we do kind of have a little bit of, I kind of heard like a little bit of both. We do have our contractors. So we do work with our contractors, like there are people, the same people that go to every, deal. I feel like in some cases I have to agree with her where like, I do need that person that I trust, just because I do deal with people from overseas and in other states and in other everything. So I can't just get anybody from the street that I just met and trust them that they're gonna do the job that I need to be done. So in that case, yes, my husband does work with the same people repeatedly. Like we have our, we have a couple of electricians. We obviously have gotten to a level where we have a couple of everything, but they are the same couple.
Yeah.
Like we have 2 or 3 electricians, but they are the exact same 2 or 3 electricians. They are, the same 2 roofers, but they are the exact 2 roofers. So we got to a point where, we do, because I feel like that relationship is very important when you're dealing with other people's money, right? Like I can't have my clients trust me if I don't have that trust in my contractors. But the rehab of it is the same. It is obviously at a much bigger level and scale. So obviously, whenever you're doing a building like this, obviously the permits are different. Your contractors have to be extremely savvy of what they're doing. All of those things, like for example, right now with the deal that I'm trying to work on in the gas station, like now I need somebody who's a petroleum engineer and that knows all this thing. So at some point in commercial, it does get complicated whenever it's very specific like that. But whenever you're buying like a building or a plaza or something like that, I mean, real estate is real estate. They still need the same walls. Like the person that does drywalls in a house does drywalls in a plaza. The same person that you know it. You could do the roof in a building or a roof in a plaza or the roof in a house, and it's the same thing.
Material.
So as far as rehabbing, it's pretty similar, I would say.
Awesome. This is like, to me, like a very dynamic panel that I think just has so many different levels of experience, but all looking for the same outcome. Big profits, making money, being able to, do this at scale. I think they're all amazing. Can we give them a round of applause? I want to open it up for questions. We have about a couple of minutes, and then obviously we have some wine and some cheese, and you guys can, mingle, and obviously the powers and the relationships. I want you to feel comfortable asking questions. You can do it on the mic, and obviously later on you want to also pull them to the side and ask questions. They're all willing to help, and whether again it's a roofing, contracting, GC, whether it's flipping design, whether it's hold or keep or Airbnb or partner and manage, whether it's commercial, and same thing. You've got 5 wonderful experts here who can help you and are just really big leaders in the community and are passionate about this and want you to become more savvy so that you could go and build your wealth through investments and continue. Anybody have any questions that they want to ask openly? Pass the mic to you.
First off, thank you so much. When is it appropriate to use a 1031 exchange?
I could answer that because I deal with 1031 exchanges all the time. I want to say, I mean, all of them. Well, 1031 exchanges are for international buyers, international sellers. And then you have, then you want to do 1031 exchange. Also, whenever you don't want to pay those big, now you have to pay a lot of taxes on capital gains, right? So if you are like them, for example, or like I have a lot of investors who are pretty hefty investors who, also do the same. They tell me, hey, Val, I want to flip, 10 homes this year or whatever. Then is the time. So if you're not just going to buy 1 or 2 properties a year, I would say if you're only flipping 1 or 2 a year, then it might not work because you still have to pay an attorney and holding fee and all that. But if you're serious about doing investments in real estate, even if it's holding, because even if you sell them 5 years from now, then you need a 1031 exchange. I would say that when is it necessary? I would say anytime that you're serious about real estate investing, if you don't want to pay those hefty taxes for capital gains.
Yeah, and just to recap, I mean, obviously it's to avoid paying capital gains. You don't have to be a foreign investor to only do 1031 exchange. It's very common for one, but obviously your goal is you've got to move this money within a certain amount of time. Got a lot of friends who obviously are in that position, and they're rushing at the end of the year to get that deal right because it's got to qualify for their, for them to meet that deadline, or they have X amount of time. I don't even know if it's 30 to 40.
It's 45 days 40. To identify a deal.
And get under contract.
So you don't have to close on that one. So it's 45 days to identify a deal. So you do have to, in 45 days, identify a deal and go under contract. You don't have to close on that deal. Like you could get out of it if whatever inspections didn't go through or whatever, and then identify another deal, but it's 45 days to identify a deal. Yes. So if you don't identify a deal, then at that point, then you have to pay the capital gains.
You have to pay capital gains.
Yeah, then at that point, you'll have to pay the taxes, which is what you're trying to avoid with a 1031 exchange.
And we can do a whole different panel, which I think it is one of the segments on 1031 exchanges. Great question. And obviously, it's something that I want to make sure everyone knows, like, it's not, just investors that are foreign, if you got all this money, you're sitting on this cash, like, for example, there's some properties right now. I want to move some of that money, but I've got to identify another property to put it in, because if not, I'm going to get dinged and I don't want to pay more taxes.
You can also utilize another strategy as well, which you know very well in the mortgage business, where you don't have to utilize and pay capital gains and not even utilize the 1031 exchange because of the market that we're in. If you have so much equity in that deal, you can have cash out refi, you will HELOC on your home, and you don't have to pay those capital gains. It's a loan on your own property. So you get the chance to buy another property, make that money triple and triple and triple, work more, and still keep that other asset as well. Just like,
that's what I'm doing on 2 of my properties that I own free and clear right now. I'm just doing a portfolio debt service loan, paying obviously interest on the money that I would have taken out anyways, and not having to pay capital gains. And now I can acquire additional property and not have to pay the capital gains on it. So, I mean, there's a lot of strategies. Obviously, we'll have a lending option for you guys to hear a little bit more over the next few grid sessions that we'll have, techniques and strategies for you to move your money. But great questions, Zach.
One other thing is that the 1031 exchange, you can actually divide it in multiple properties. So if you're making, I don't know, maybe 100, whatever, you can divide that and use that for multiple down payments in a couple different ones, and then spread out.
And just a reminder, we are not your accountant or your tax advisors or your attorneys.
Make your research.
Do your research and speak to your advisors. When the IRS comes knocking, don't be saying you heard of that grid that we gave you those strategies. Don't be like, no, you didn't. Any other questions, guys? Oh, we got a question over here. Let me borrow this mic. And we're going to speak just because we have people on the
So I'm starting to build my portfolio. I currently have 3 properties. My question is, I've heard some people say you have to open an LLC. I guess, how many properties can you have under an LLC before you open another LLC to keep building that portfolio?
coincidence.
Does that make sense?
Well, you don't need to have multiple LLCs. It's up to you how you want to divide it, but we keep everything under one. So it's really how you want to manage it,
It's the
but you
risk.
don't need more than
It's-
one.
Mostly
You're-
I think it's more of a risk.
Yeah.
So what it is if you have one property in one LLC, and let's say it's a rental, and say you're renting the property and somebody fails there and wants to sue you. If you own multiple properties, they can not only get that one, but the rest. So it depends on how you want to distribute that, but there's no like limit or necessary. It depends on how you want to do it. You can either do it one per LLC or you can do it in a trust. So I think that will be more up to what you do with the property and how much risk you want to take.
So for example, that you guys that have a lot of properties, you just have it all under one.
That also depends how you acquire the property. So let's say if you purchase a property with a conventional loan, you have to keep the property in your personal name. But if you use cash or hard money or something like that, some banks require you actually to purchase it in that one LLC. So I think it will vary depending on what it is. It will differ. We have multiple different LLCs, some personally, some LLCs divided up in a couple different ways. So it will vary. So I would say that according to what you want to do with the property specifically, then talking to an attorney and a CPA better.
Thank you.
Let me also, another thing, because again, it is the same thing where like if you have, but also if you, I would say, talk to your attorney, right, and your accountant, but you could do what's called a land trust. I don't know if like you guys are familiar with that.
Yes.
Which is much easier than.
Actually, let's assume that they aren't familiar with it.
Okay, so let me
Let's
explain,
assume that
just
they're
because
not.
it is easier than opening. Well, we open LLCs for risk management, right? It's risk management, simply for exactly what she said. You don't want to have 20 different properties in one LLC and then you get sued for one, you get sued on all, right? So, well, with my portfolio, what I've learned is with the land trust is much better, right? Like you build a family trust, right? Like, you know, what's your last name? Ospina's family trust, right? And under that family trust, you could do land trust, separate land trust. So you could buy your properties under those separate land trusts, right? But each individual property is a trust, it's a land trust. So like, for example, 123 Kings Point Boulevard Land Trust, ABC Street Land Trust. They're all under your family trust. So they're all in this like umbrella. And then you could have them technically like a separate LLC, but they're land trusts, so that you don't have to continue opening LLCs. Because as we all know, also, you have to renew those LLCs every year. You have to pay fee for those LLCs every year. And you're being taxed the business.
Well, but in our case, and since we do a lot of flips, right? So
Right,
we
you
only
don't hold
hold the
them.
properties
Right,
for
you
a
don't
short
hold
period of time.
Right.
So for accounting purposes, having multiple
Yeah, that doesn't
LLCs,
make
I mean,
sense.
it's,
Right.
no, but if I were to hold it long-term, then yes, it would make sense to kind of diversify so you can protect yourself.
I hold mine in separate LLCs because I keep mine. But again, like they said, like I'm not moving properties the way they are, but if it was in an acquisition, that's gonna be obviously through the acquisition. So, but again, check with your advisors. Any other questions? These are great questions, by the way. Zach, another question?
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Assuming you have the down payment, it's actually an Airbnb question. Is there such thing as too expensive of a property? I'd be specific. Right now, I'm looking at beach properties up and down the West Coast. Everything is ridiculously expensive. I'm like, okay, if something is $2 million, but it cash flows, is it just like, how do you assess risk when it comes to price for Airbnb?
Don't buy the house counting only on Airbnb numbers. I think that would be a big mistake because we never know what's going to happen. Maybe Airbnb is not going to be here forever. Maybe it's not going to be the same strategy that works for you. So one of the things we do, and I'll pass the mic to Andres, is the acquisition. But whenever we're analyzing the property, we're looking at numbers and long-term play. And if it works in a long term, then we buy it. And then the Airbnb is just extra profit, extra bonus on it.
Yeah, if you're gonna buy a luxury property, if you're gonna spend $1 million or $2 million and you're gonna specifically do Airbnb, I would do your research, go on AirDNA and run the comps and see what those comparable properties are running. And I would also look at the rules and regulations in that county. If it's not not allowed in that county, I wouldn't even bother. I would just specifically target the areas that are already short-term rental. And always look at the long-term rental. What's the worst case scenario? And no, I mean, I've seen people make $10,000, $15,000 a month on the big properties, as long as they're very unique. I think one of the biggest things right now that are happening is a lot of people are getting into the Airbnb. So it's not just about just having a place so people can sleep. I think you have to give an experience. Some friends are now starting to invest money in the backyards and having mini golf courses in their backyards, or doing things that are, you know, really nice game rooms, or things that are of experience that will make your property different. I think it's great. I would think I would go for it, man, to be honest with you. I don't think that it's a bad idea, but I would run the numbers and make sure that worst case scenario, long term, you're still gonna at least cover your mortgage, taxes, insurance, and make sure it's legal.
I think there was a question in the back. Somebody, don't be shy. Anybody else? No? Did you guys find value today? Did you learn something? All right. We're gonna wrap up with at least maybe one or two of you just sharing one aha that you learned. Who wants the mic to share something that they learned today, or that they're gonna go out and do? Anybody? You said you learned something. Ooh, no? No? Okay, there we go. Because if not, we invite you back. Or we have our friends over here on the chat as well. If you learned something and you're on the chat, please let us know. Great advice. Thank you so much for bringing them together. Please let us know, those of you who are online, if you had any ahas, takeaways, or something that you felt brought you value, so that we can thank our panelists. And I think we have a comment back there.
First and foremost, I was going to say I'm grateful for all you guys that up there, and just these events in general, because they're very beneficial. But this whole LLC thing at the end was like mind blowing to me. I kind of knew of it, but it was great to kind of dive deeper into it. And like the land trust thing, I had no idea what that was, so I really appreciate you saying that.
Awesome. Eileen, thank you so much. What's your name? Jonathan. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Eileen, she commented on the Lowe's Pro Desk. So that was early on. So those of you who gave the tips of being able to set up those pro accounts and how to buy in bulk. And I thought that was a really great aha moment as well. Anybody else? All right, so let's give it up for our panelists. Thank you so much. Again, Grid Orlando is every second Wednesday of the month. Bring a friend, invite a friend. It's a great way for you also to get your clients and your people in your network also to have a passion for investments as well. These deals can happen not only just for you, but for people that you mentor, as well as your clients. And also deals can happen together. Remember, this is a platform where you can not only learn and become educated, but also you can bring deals to each other. So if you guys run across a deal, we got some people in here who are willing to help you. Israel, Andres, myself, Drew, where you're at, we're always looking for deals to partner with. I think Jorge Figueroa as well, are pretty savvy in the wholesale world. You got Jason, who's actually kicking off the Grid Tampa chapter. So Grid chapter, they're going to be May 24th. If you want to learn about what's popping in Tampa, he's our newest chapter leader. We're super excited. So there, no 2 chapters are going to be identical. Yeah, we'll have the basic slides. We're all going to be sharing the same resources there, but the panelists are different, the techniques, the strategies. So don't think, well, if you go to Orlando, you can't make a trip out to Tampa and go and support the Tampa chapter. Because again, this is a platform where you meet people and deals come together. So we'll be out there supporting them May 24th, right? May 24th in Tampa. So if you're looking to learn more about the Tampa market, our sister chapter out there is going to crush it. Thank you again to our panelists. We actually have a little gift for our panelists for these parents. You were prompted. You go get another one later on. Don't worry about it. I got you. But we do have a little something. So we're really excited, and we're going to have an opportunity for you guys. If you are serious about being a Grid member, we want you to post, we want you to hashtag, we want you to tag, we want you to share. And every once in a while, we'll give away some Grid swag. which is pretty cool, but we've got a little thank you for our guests. To make sure that we let them know we are grateful for you guys. You guys are grid leaders. You are leaders who are inspiring so many people. So thank you guys all. We're just gonna grab them and then we'll exchange the sizes here, but these are all for you guys. Thank you so much. I think we might have an extra shirt in the back for Michael. But here you go. And if we mix up the sizes, it's maybe you guys get the right size. But thank you guys. We have wine and cheese. Make sure you go thank them personally, and we will see you at the next Grid Orlando. Thank you again.